Hello, it's James again, and I'm back at the end of another season, and for the foreseeable future, the end of 31 stories. It's been a wonderful project, and I'm really pleased with how each of these episodes turned out. Way back, over 2 years ago, I couldn't have imagined having all these stories produced as little audiobooks, or that so many of you would have listened, so thank you. If you'd like to stay informed of any future projects, be sure to check out my various socials and website in my linktree in the show notes. These episodes will remain available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, Overcast, Podcast Addict, Deezer, hopefully wherever good podcasts are found, so why not head back to the beginning? As a final thank you and a final farewell, I'd like to leave you with one more story. This one was written for a writing workshop in March of 2023, so about 9 months before the very first story in this feed. I stumbled across it recently and thought it also deserved its own time in the sun. So please, enjoy The Boy and the Dragon. Once upon a time, there was a young boy who lived alone on the edge of a village. Some years before, his poor mother and father had fallen ill and left the boy forever. His grandmother had taken pity on him and looked after him as best she could. However, the winter had been very hard and she, too, had left him. Before she died, she had shown him how to make a net to catch fish, which mushrooms to pick in the woods, how to build a fire, and how to boil water. He learned to do all these things for his grandmother, and now she was gone, he did them for himself. But he was sad. Although he had enough to eat and the sun was shining, he was sad. Because he was alone. One day, when he was looking for berries in the woods, he heard a hissing sound. Thinking it was a snake, he turned on his heel and ran away home. The next day, he found himself in the same part of the wood, having forgotten all about the snake. But there was the sound again, only even louder. This must be a monstrous snake, he thought, and ran home even faster than the day before. That night, his dreams were full of giant serpents bending and spitting. The next morning, he hadn't forgotten, and he couldn't stop himself from going back to the same part of the wood. There again was the hissing, louder and angrier than ever. This time, he wanted to see, and so carefully trod closer and closer. Not behind this bush or that stump, until, finally, he found not a snake, but an egg. A shining golden egg, almost as big as he was. The leaves and brush around it were all singed black, and the boy realized that the hissing was the egg burning everything it touched. He had never seen anything so wonderful or so terrifying. What could have laid such an egg? And what was it doing here? He searched around, but could find no animals, no people, no sign of anything or anyone, just the brilliant, enormous egg. The boy urged himself closer, feeling the warmth on his skin, even from a distance. Closer and closer, hotter and hotter, until he stood before it, his face glowing and his hand drawn out, reaching for the bright, pitted shell. He knew it would hurt, like the round belly of a cooking pot on a fire, but he touched the egg, only to find it cool, pleasant even. While the air around him shimmered, the golden shell soothed him, and it was then he knew that this was his egg. The next day, he returned with a wheelbarrow from behind his hut, and gently, slowly, he wended his way home with the egg. It was hot work, and he left a scorch mark through the whole wood and across the meadow to the hut, but somehow the egg was not heavy, and long before dark, he was looking at the egg sitting before the hearth. In the light of the fire, it was somehow even more beautiful than it had been when he found it. Shimmering in the light, it almost seemed to be moving. But then he realized that no, it was moving. The shell was bending and bulging, cracking as well as hissing. It wobbled from side to side, more and more, until, with a crack, a little piece of the big egg jumped across the hut, and in its place was a green, scaly, clawed foot. The boy was transfixed as another set of talons appeared, then another, now the tip of a blackened tail, then a piercing orange eye. From the gloom inside the egg, the eye darted left and right, seeing the world for the first time. Then, to the boy's horror, the eye stared right at him. At that moment, the creature found the strength for one last push and shattered the rest of the egg, shaking itself free. Standing before the boy, in the middle of his hut, stretching its new legs and shining wings, was a real, live dragon. And now, both orange eyes were staring at him. The boy wanted to run away, and the dragon must have felt it because it let out an angry snort, sending soot and sparks flying. The boy stopped, and then took a step towards the newborn beast. It responded with a low growl, but the boy kept going. It bared its new snow-white teeth, but the boy kept going. He reached out a hand, and the dragon snapped those razor fangs, but the boy rested his fingers on the creature's snout, and the creature let him. It closed its eyes and breathed a little slower. "Now we will not be alone," said the boy. As the dragon grew, it began to break things. First, it jumped on the table and, being too heavy, broke all the table legs. Later, as its tail got longer and swished and slashed, it smashed the only window in the small hut, letting in the cold winds at night. It chewed through the boy's fishing net and scratched his skin while he slept, but the boy didn't mind, because it was his dragon. As the dragon continued to grow, the boy worried that his dragon wouldn't fit in the small hut. How big could a dragon grow? But he also worried about the people in the nearby village. What would they do if they knew such a monster lived among them? But the boy was glad that it was his monster. One day, when the boy was out hunting for mushrooms, he came home to find his dragon swooping and circling in the skies. It was twice as big as it had been only that morning. The villagers were shouting and pointing, and the boy saw that where the hut had been, there was now a smouldering black pit. The boy had nothing left but his dragon. "Kill the beast!" cried one farmer. "Send it back to hell!" said his wife. "No!" called the boy. "Not my dragon! Don't hurt it! Leave it alone!" "Your dragon?" asked another. "Why would you want such a thing? Surely it will eat you." "Never," replied the boy. "You don't understand. Just leave us alone." The dragon swooped down and sat between the boy and the terrified villagers, bearing down on them with those fiery eyes. Even the boy was a little frightened, as the creature had grown so massive and was now more blood red than bottle green. The people of the village scattered and scuttled back to their homes, as the boy and his dragon curled up to sleep. News of the boy and the monster started to spread from village to village, and in time, curiosity brought strangers from far and wide to see for themselves if the stories were true. To their horror and amazement, they found that they were. At first, they only came as close as the nearby village and saw the awful creature flying and breathing fire. Gradually, some of the braver children snuck closer until they could see the deep red scales, and then closer until they could see the little boy, naked and blackened from head to toe. His back and arms were cut and sore. He was weak and thin, as he had nothing to eat. But as the children, and even some parents, finally reached the scorched circle where the hut had once been, they could see the little teeth of a big smile stretching across the boy's face as he looked up at his dragon. "There have never been so many people here before," thought the boy, "and they are all here to see my dragon." The last person to arrive was a towering knight on a gleaming chestnut horse. His armour also glimmered in the sunlight, and the breeze lifted his long white cape behind him. The villagers parted to let him through, wide-eyed and bowing. As the knight reached the edge of the throng, he jumped from his horse and called to the boy, "This dragon has taken you prisoner. I am here to free you." There was a cheer from the crowd. "I am not a prisoner," said the boy, but his voice was so weak the knight almost didn't hear him. "You are starved and alone," said the knight. "You do not know what you say." "I know what I say," replied the boy, "and I am not alone." The knight removed his helmet. He was tall and strong, but tears ran from his eyes. "Please, boy, let me help you." The boy looked to the knight, and seeing his tears, became so angry that his face twisted into a terrible grimace. For a moment, the knight saw the dragon in the boy and felt afraid for the first time, but he stood firm. "Let me help you." The boy let out a bellowing roar, and the dragon sailed down from the heavens. It descended on the knight, and in a bright flash erupted fire on him. In a panic, the villagers and onlookers ran and cried for mercy. The dragon hunted them, one after another, spewing fire, torching people, animals, and buildings alike. The black circle grew around the boy, and as the fires subsided and the smoke rose thick and black, he thought, "Now they will all be alone."